Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to this year's industry conference presented by Christie Digital at the 50th anniversary of TIFF, presented by Rogers. My name is Ava Young, and I'm the industry conference manager here at TIFF. And it's a pleasure to introduce our next session, Perspectives, Latin American Cinema in Challenging Times. This panel examines how shifting political and economic forces are transforming Latin American filmmaking, from rising production costs to a growing dependence on international co-productions, and explores what it means to make films in and for Latin America today. Our programming is made possible by the support of all our sponsors and partners. A sincere thank you to our presenting sponsor, Rogers, our major sponsors, RBC and Visa, our major industry supporters, Ontario Creates and Telefilm Canada, and our media partner, Screen International, for supporting the Perspectives program. Joining us today is Manuel García, Director at Cinetren, Claudia Triana Soto, Director Pro Imagenes, Colombia, Nicolás Celis, Producer and Founder, Pimienta Films, and guiding us through this conversation is film critic Fernando Juan Lima. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Hi, it's great to be here. Welcome, everybody. We are really excited to be here. We've been talking a lot before this encounter about how to take advantage of this hour we have here. I think everybody was presented before, so we can pass through this thing. We work in Argentina, Colombia, and Mexico, but not only. And we feel that this possibility we have here to debate and think together is really important because audiovisual cinema specifically is an ecosystem. We do have some differences. Each of our countries has its own difficulties and also some points that must be shown or we think we can talk about, but there are a lot of themes, there are a lot of problems that they are the same in all our countries, and we feel that what we can say about Latin America, maybe it has to do also with the reality in other countries. That's why it's really important that TIFF is paying attention to that, is thinking about that, thinking about cinema as something that has to do with culture, and culture everywhere in the world is really important, and that's why we tried to think about what we will talk about in this hour that we have now. As you just heard, here there are producers, distributors, people thinking about measures taken by the governments. So we will try to think about that. One thing that we agreed is not only make all the panel today about what is happening in these days. We don't want to be crying in front of you all the time, but just thinking about the future, the possibilities, the things that we can see that they are wrong in the present, but maybe there is an opportunity to change, to use some tools, to have some measures in order to have a more important industry in our countries, and also it's really important to have more diversity, something that is really difficult to to have in Latin America. Since we conceived this panel, as I said, we have the idea on avoid focusing solely on the analysis of the actual situation. There are many factors that in the present are particularly different and difficult in Latin America because beyond all the problems that we are feeling and experiencing all over the world since the pandemics, in our countries, we do have an important problem, I think, that has to do with the impossibility of acquiring a certain predictability. We have constant changes in the rules of the game that has to do with the governments, but not only with that. And that's, I feel, it's a really important problem. We can see what is happening in Argentina nowadays. In Argentina, culture in general it's really in the center of the discussions because we have a government that explicitly is against culture, against public support to cinema, but not only to cinema. But we can see what happened in Brazil, that nowadays is in some kind of spring, but some years before it was a little bit just the same way that we are here in Argentina. So we thought about 3 or 4 points that will open the debate. I will make some question, and usually the answer maybe not exactly have to do with will not have exactly to do with the question, but only to open the debate because I know that our views and our realities are a little bit different. Then we'll have 15 minutes just to talk with you, that we are really looking forward to that. Given the scenario that I just tried to explain, what tools can you suggest to achieve consistency and predictability in the public health system? What alternative measures of tools do you think would allow us to envisage a sustainable future for Latin America cinema? That's the first question. Maybe Claudia.
Well, since I'm the only woman.
Yeah. Not only.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Ow.
Thank you, TIFF. Thank you to my colleagues, and thank you for you to be here. It's very inspiring to think of the future together because we don't have the answers, but we have explored something, or maybe good practices that we had find that are sort of successful when we work with the national policies for the audiovisual. In my case, in Colombia, I'm the director of Pro Imágenes Colombia, which is a non-profit organization, so I'm half public and half private, and that's one of the, I think, best practices, or maybe certain paths to maybe don't depend absolutely in the changes of the politicians or the governments. Next year, for instance, in the region, we're going to have 7 different presidents that are going to be elected, so ours in Colombia, for instance. So we don't depend exactly from the national budget. So what we've done in Colombia is like constructing a system of incentives that depends on the industry, in one case for the national fund, that for the film fund, for the local productions, it comes from the industry. It's part of the income that the distributors, exhibitors, and producers receive from the box office. That's one, and the others try to construct that there's a big participation of the sector. I mean, that means producers, directors, technicians, that are in the board of the different incentives. So you don't feel so alone. And you have some people that are struggling hand in hands with us to not to change the things that are all right. So maybe that's one thing that I can say in this.
And Mexico maybe is seen in a completely different way, no?
Yeah, I think that in Mexico we're having different challenges, from the production to the exhibition journey. I think we've been doing okay in terms of production since we created the tax credit that incentivized production, which triggered from, in early 2000s to that Mexico produced around 10 to 30 films to more than 250 nowadays. So what challenges do I see? Our funds have been very supported for first-time and second-time directors. So we've created in the past years, new talent that then we haven't followed up in a way as a generalization, because I think that around 40–50% of our main fund goes to first-time directors. So I think that we have a challenge to keep following up on directors that have succeeded in the box office, and more than the box office, bringing an audience to cinemas, and for more experienced directors. I think that we have a long time cinematic tradition in the country, and we need to keep talent. We need to retain talent. Mexico, in a way, is the third country in the world that sells the most amount of tickets. So people do go to cinema, not to our films, which the market share is 4%, 5%. So it's really, really bad for Mexican films in our own territory. So there's a lot of work in terms of decentralization now, trying to tell stories around the country, not only from Mexico City, to do a cinema that includes the diversity of our country. And then, so that's, I think, that the challenges in our funds. And I think that the biggest challenge is on the exhibition point, which is not only having more places to show the films thought outside the multiplex or big chains, but into the art house cinemas that can evolve, to places where communities once can grow and establish there, but also in the sense that we can really think of making better movies as producers and directors. I would say that we need to return and not only think in festivals, but also think on how, with the public policies, with the community, we can do better movies, which I would say a good movie would be a movie that can really get to a bigger audience, more and more. I would say that that's the road to improve. So I think we're analyzing our ecosystem to improve it, because the road we're going will not be beneficial in the next years if we keep going in that direction.
Yeah, we will come back to exhibition and distribution because we want to talk about that a little bit more. But what we feel, what we are experiencing these days is, in one hand, we have this idea, I think, in all over the world is the same. Cinema cannot exist without public support. Some kind of it. We can think about different measures. But in our countries, I feel, and I'm talking about Brazil and Argentina at least, that we don't have rules that they are maintained during the time. And maybe there are some measures that we can think about to avoid or to prevent these kind of problems. In Argentina, we have years in which we made more than 200 films, and in this year we are seeing if we have 10% of that amount. So the change is really critical. I know, Manuel, your expertise more about distribution, but as we must think in all the system as an ecosystem, what do you feel we can do about that? What we can do even without the support of the government, as we are in this moment?
Well, yeah, I think distribution and production are more the same thing than we usually say or think. I'm going to talk about what I know from producers, what we see, since Argentina is sort of a leading case of a government that hates culture. As Fernando said, we were used to have like an average of 200 films per year, sort of. And since 2023, which is the year that government changed, we've had 0. So we have up to today like a gap of 400 films, let's say. Of course, we as distributors are worried because we cannot distribute films that doesn't exist. But we're still working on some stock of previous years. What I think is interesting, and that has to do with distribution, is that the government attacks Argentinian films mostly because they say no one sees those films. They have no audience. And the Argentinian film industry is having trouble like refusing that, you know? Because I think we haven't thought about audience enough. We gave for granted cinema, you know, for like 30 years, since the cinema or film law in 1994. And now we realize that we need an audience, not only films. So I think we need maybe government to change, but not only to have more films, but also to have better films in an audience sense, you know? Yeah. We need to think more about audience. We need to think about audience earlier also. I think that's a way we can become really independent, not only of, you know, economic power, but also from political power. That would be, I think, a good way to think about a predictable film industry.
Yeah. The point is, at the same time as we have less support from the governments, and that's, I think, is happening all over the world, even for economics reasons, not only political ones, we do assist to an increase of importance of some other factors. What in other days the public funding did, nowadays is made via co-productions or via the support of the platforms. No, the thing I think we must think about is what happens with national cinemas. Who is deciding with which films they are done? How can we make not to lose in this way our own culture if the films we are managing to make are only the ones that platform or the co-producer that has more budget decides? What do you think? What kind of films we will be able to do in the futures, even though for the moment they are difficult to be seen in movie theaters? Claudia, if you want.
Yeah, okay. There are like 3 questions.
Yeah. Sorry.
But In Colombia, for instance, we have a system 22 years ago that there's a submission, like a contest, and we have international and national juries that recommend to the committee for the awards. And there are non-refundable resources. And I think that's good, but this is also sort of perverse. Because we are very dependent, or the producers are very dependent on those funds. And that's okay for the first and second film, but in our countries, it's also true for the third, the fourth, the fifth, to every film that it's not a mainstream film. We don't do we do very little films that are for all family audiences. We do a lot of drama and author films, and we need that diversity also. You know, we have big countries, different cultures within the same country, and we need to support those stories all around the country. So our funds are very necessary. They are limited, but I think that also the producers, now they are concerned because the public is not coming, and we have these terrible examples of Brazil, that was one of the biggest industries, and Argentina or Mexico, and they had these moments of different politicians changing everything. Thanks God we didn't have that, because we were invisible until 20 years ago. We don't have this industry tradition, but now we understood, and maybe we learned, that we have to shift, shield our systems so that they don't have to, depend on the politicians, but more in the industry, in the way of doing, in the need to tell our own stories. Nobody's going to tell our story in the US or Canada. We need you guys for a co-production, as you say. And in Colombia, for instance, we had in the last 10 years, like 30% of all our films are co-productions, and in 2024, there were like 28%. So it's a need to do co-productions, but not all films or all stories can be a co-production.
Nico?
Yeah, so I think, for example, in Mexico, we need to update ourselves and refresh, change the air a little bit, because I think that sometimes conversations stay in a small group and we just listen to ourselves, and we actually don't want change. But I think Mexico has forgotten a little bit about the reciprocity factor in co-productions. And I say it because I think our cinematography has grown so much within the years, because of the international collaborations, co-productions, funds where we're part of that. I think of my films, and we've co-produced with so many countries, but in the past years, there's been a big closeness within the industry, not the funds. The funds, I would say that they're okay. They're working, and they've been stable for a couple of years and growing and solid. Obviously, they can be improved, but I think as an industry, we need to, think about how we benefited from the collaborations. Because, for example, this year, these two amazing Latin American films, The Mysterious Gaze of the Flamenco, and A Poet, the Colombian film that is wonderful. They both won in Cannes. One won Best Film in Un Certain Regard, and the other one won Best Director. and both were rejected from the Mexican fund, one 4 times and one 3 times. So it's a big statement of the jury saying, we don't care, you know? And that's a pity, because it's not the fund. But I think that we need also, and our fund needs to speak out loud, really, what kind of cinema they want to do. Because sometimes when funds or government wants to be so democratic, so inclusive, they become sometimes the opposite. Because I feel that we grow with all these different voices, directors coming to shoot to the country, or that we go to another country. So that also talks to the reality that we don't have film rebates. I think that in Colombia, the industry has grown in a huge multiplying factor since the rebate was created, because they've attracted a lot of business to the country, that also trained the people, that also made more business. So other companies came, technology, innovation. And in Mexico, we only have a small rebate in one state. And I think that now with inflation that streamers have provoked in all the countries, that the industry itself, I think globally feels weird, don't you think? Like it's slow, less amount of projects being made, harder to go to festivals, big names in the films. So I feel that growing this part of the business and diversifying as a policy in each country would be very important. So we're missing that could really complete the circle. And I feel that the co-productions can help us get the Mexican cinematography again in the biggest places, because I think that we produce a lot and we're not making the audience go to the cinema to see our movies. And I feel that that doesn't work, doesn't make sense, in the sense that we just like to see sometimes, or it feels like we want to see our belly button and not make the whole experience of sharing emotions and connecting. So I think that as a producer, it's very important to speak about the whole ecosystem and all the measures we can have, not only in keeping the things like with public funding or money flowing into the ecosystem, but how we can really make each phase of the ecosystem healthy. Because funds will come, go, reduce, increase, but I think that we need to be more accountable on how we can make a better ecosystem. Because about the streamers, we need to be careful on how they involve in each country's narrative, on how we make the movies, how they control in a way the whole industry. Once you work with them, how you need to keep the good relationship so they don't punish you, so they so at the end of the day, the streamers support it, but I think that we need to keep a balance so our own narratives and different narratives can exist, and
Yeah, of course, because I think that if governments don't do their work, the streamers, they do. And it is important not only because that way we have some films that they are done and others that they don't, but they are also educating us in what kind of films we can understand, feel, and eventually go to see in a cinema. I think in that way, creating audiences and educating is really important. I know, Manuel, that you usually insist on that.
Yeah, I wanted to add something which I think is also difficult when we talk about industries that are like, in a way, colonized by platforms, which is the IP thing, the use of the rights of the films. I mean, I'm really worried because not only the platforms have a say in all that has to do with the content, with what's inside the movie, but also in how we use that movie. I mean, where is it premiere? Who does it sell? what territories, when, what. I mean, I think that there's an independence that has to do with how we use the rights, how we show the movies. Argentinian cinema needs to recover that independence, which is also to know how how to use those films, which I think is something that we're also losing. But yes, going to the film audience building, I think we in Argentina also had a series of programs that had to do with exhibition and with audience. There was a program that was meant to take usually Argentinian films, but let's say diversity films, to young audiences and children. But that was like, I mean, it doesn't exist anymore. So all the programs that had to do with audience and screens are not available. So we have this double challenge where the privates are working in a way away from diversity, and the public, I mean, in our case, the National Institute, isn't there to, let's say, balance, thank you, to balance that.
And we kind of talk about that, but I think we should get to it again. The distribution, no? Why, when we think about measures, we are always thinking only about productions, and then we protest because our national quota is always decreasing, and the audiences don't go to see national films or whatever, and there is some problem with that we must think about. I think usually it's really very difficult, almost impossible, to see a Colombian film or a Mexican film in Argentina. At least it wins in Cannes and it's distributed by an international distributor or whatever. But even though it is really difficult even to communicate between us, what measures you can imagine to solve that, to be able to think or having again independent distributors that may think about cinema as in this way?
Well, I think that there are like more like I don't know how to say this, but spaces like this when we get together and think together and talk and think like we did just before. How do we take a Colombian film to Argentina? And I said, well, let's try with this one. And I said, well, okay, I'll send you the screener. I mean, some networking is missing, I think. But I would say also that my feeling is that after COVID, a lot of adult audiences retire from the theatrical, you know? They are not going to see movies in the cinema. So, and I think that we as distributors should think about which are the movies that other audiences, I mean, which are the movies for younger audiences, which is the art house of younger audiences. I think we haven't stopped to think about, we're still trying to bring French films with Isabelle Huppert, you know, because that's what we used to, what works, the films that had great reviews in the newspapers. And I think it's not working anymore, and I think we have to, and I think there aren't enough young distributors, you know. There should be younger distributors. I mean, I'm 51, and I'm young in terms of distribution, but we need 30-year-old distributors. I mean, and there are no distribution. There's no distribution in the film schools, you know. There should be young people who want and know how to sell a film. I think that's part of the problem.
In Colombia?
At least in Colombia, I mean, I'm so happy to meet him because in Colombia it's like an extinction specimen.
And dinosaurs.
We have very little distributors, and we have like an emerging distributors because they feel that they cannot distribute their films, so they become like distributors of their colleagues and etc. Very little, very non-trained or non-professional distributors, but we really have like one sales agent that goes abroad, you know, like moving our films. So it's very, that's part of what we need to do. We don't have a fund to support distributors, for instance. We had a fund to produce because we didn't produce. I mean, our film law says 70% you have to do it, give it to the production because we didn't have. But now that we have 79 films last year and we have only 2% of the box office share of the market, we have to do things. We have to work together. We have to do, but we have a lack of infrastructure too. Only 8% of the whole country has access to cinema, and also we have like 9 screens that like to program art cinema, art films, and their conditions are not good. So we were talking to before that we need to do that networking in every cultural center that a secretary of culture of some department or city in Colombia wants to have an auditorium, but where are the proper conditions for the exhibition first, and then the curation, the programming, the circulation, this networking that is so important, because if we have 50 places in Colombia and 50 there and 50 there, and people behind that understand that we have to circulate our content, maybe we can do something.
Yeah, I'm trying to reduce the amount of things I want to say because this is fascinating and the biggest challenge. First of all, I want to really thank and congratulate all the art house cinemas that really they're the piece of the puzzle that really make their audience, that they know their audience, go and see our films. They do cycles, they do talks, discussions of the films, promotions, etc., just to make people go to the cinema. So I think it's very important as filmmakers that we really protect and we're part of our ecosystem, you know? Yesterday I saw a photo of one of the Safdie brothers in 2009 outside of a cinema, of an art house cinema, playing his movie, dressed with a panoa, como un cartón, I don't know how to say it, but promoting his film too. Sí, like a cardboard, yeah, thank you. To promote his film and make people go into the cinema. And I would think, how many filmmakers do that, you know? And I feel that when you see that photo from 2009 and now where the filmmakers are, you can make a connection, you know? And for me, it's very important that, because I do that in my films. For example, with Roma, we distributed the film in Latin America theatrically, and we took it to Venezuela, Honduras, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and you know, even if the box office could not be big because we went to art house cinemas mainly, etc., it was so important, so relevant that the movie would go there, that the movie would be shown, would get into to an audience, because I'm not the person that will decide the public policies necessarily or what the streamer's decision will be toward theatrical. But for me as a producer, distributor, exhibitor, I want people to not suffer or pay the price of the war of, windows, theatrical windows of where you see the movies. But I feel that, for example, in Mexico, Pinocchio and Roma, for example, in the Cinematheque, is up to date one of the most viewed movies in the history of our Cinematheque. So for me, it's a win, a personal win, or our industry win, that movies do get to an audience, that it can be, celebrated collectively. And I think we have to really focus on how to make movies that can connect with an audience. And I repeat this, and it sounds maybe like a dream, but it's not. I work as a producer for more than 4 or 5 movies a year, and not many filmmakers really think about the audience. And that doesn't mean that you need to do very mainstream movies or movies that are so cheap in terms of content. Like, I would say that, and I love to say that we need to make movies with a lot of proteins, but with sparkle of calories, and make it attractive, but still deliver quality. And I think that that's possible if we really think on the people. And what you said about a younger audience coming to the cinemas, I think it's true. And in Mexico, just to give you some numbers, last year, in the main box office of the country, from the 20 most successful films, 17 were for children and adolescents and teenagers, and 3 were for adults. I made an average of the 5 biggest art house cinemas, and I did the top 20, and it was 15 for adults, 3 for adolescents, and 3 for kids. So we need to create an audience, and we need our kids want to go to the cinema or to see movies or get entertained or learn, and I think that that's also a big advantage for us to work on. To create movies and spaces and experiences in cinemas for the younger audiences, that then they will be our, regular audience.
Yeah, you jumped a little bit to exhibition, but it's true. But we are said that our movies are not seen, but if they are not distributed and we don't have movie theaters to see them, it's really impossible, because we have this problem. But I think you said directors are not thinking about that. But I think we as industry, we are not doing that. That's why if we see all the love films in all our countries, what they are thinking is about how to produce more. It's like we were in the 40s, last century in the 40s. Now they are lost. They are thinking about producing more, and if there is not audience, there's no problem. And I don't know, in Argentina, Manu, I think we have less than half of the movie theaters we have in the 90s.
Yeah, and the thing is, we can't, we can book those theaters. There's less and less chances. I think that also post-COVID, a lot of Argentinian films are having to struggle more to get a big screen. Today, before I came inside, I was booking the Mondays. We book the theaters in Argentina, and I don't know in the rest of the countries. And I was very worried because we had a film that was in San Sebastián, and after that was in Mar del Plata. It's a great film. And the multiplexes, they said, we give you nothing. And then the other one said, we give you nothing. And until one said, I will give you one. And I was, oh, yeah, I have one. Now we can release. It has become like mission impossible, to go into the theater. So we don't know how good or bad that film will be because it doesn't have the opportunity to find audience. So I think that, in Argentina we had this quota. There was a regulation that all the cinemas had to release many films per year, many Argentinian films per year, but this government also made that disappear. And now the few films that are remaining, Argentinian films, have to struggle a lot to find an audience there. And then the audience itself has got used so much to other kind of films that when you finally make it, the public doesn't, I mean, it's like under the radar, you know?
But not other country, USA content.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, not Latin American, a little bit of European, not Asian. I mean, it's only North America.
Yeah, we do envy La Cinemateca in Mexico. It's an institution that is great. But what happens in terms of exhibition in Colombia?
Well, I said it before. We have 1,270 or so screens all over the country, but mainly in the big cities. Colombia is like 42% of Colombia from the center to the south is Amazon, and we have 1,100 cities and small cities all around, and we only have 8% of them who have cinemas, and we have 6 chains of exhibitors that mainly 90% of the, or a lot of percent of the titles are from the mainstream of Hollywood, and 90% of the spectators go to the 10 better, more popular films from America. We have only a little space for other cinematographies, and that dream that we have, that we speak in all Central and South America, that we speak Spanish, and that we are more or less the same, principles and cultural very close, is not true. It's not true in the cinema, and not even in the Hispanics from the U.S. They don't want to see their films. Also, they want to be Americans. They don't want to, So we say 50 million people are speaking Spanish in the area, and how come we don't see each other? But the reality is that we don't see each other, and because we haven't designed the proper tools to support this circulation, this collaboration we need to support a networking system in our countries, and also that we don't know each other. I mean, really, not the talent.
Thank you. I don't see you that well, but it's your time. If you have any commentary or question. Oh, here, just in the first row.
Oh.
You.
Yep.
Based on what you're just saying about this type of collaboration, have you guys ever tried or thought about creating some sort of non-profit organization among you guys, the filmmakers and distributors that are actually around the scene at this moment? Is that an utopia, or could that eventually happen?
Did you hear? Oh, she's asking about the possibility of having non-profitable organizations that helps to work in finding solutions to these problems. Around Latin America, of course, yeah.
I think, for example, in Mexico, this year we launched the first federation of producers, for example, for that in Latin America, to kind of have like a stronger voice together. And I think, yeah, that's the road of collaboration. But the reality is that, as you said, it's very different each country. And for example, sometimes, we've been doing a lot of tests of bringing films to Argentina, to Chile, to Colombia. and it's really hard because of the exhibitor's control. So I think that, in a way, I think that the solution that I like, so I don't think everything is lost, in a way, is to start from the community, to have cinemas that work with cultural agents that know their audience, that they can bring an Argentinian film, an Argentinian audience, that can be, that they can fill the cinemas, because I feel that people do want to go to the cinema. Like, I really feel that they want to go, but they want to go to good quality projections, good quality events, etc. So it's a lot of eventization, kind of it. But because I think we're already connected in Latin America from different ways, but our local problems needs to be also addressed. That's what I think.
Okay. I wanted to add something, is that we have to start. I mean, it's like this is a white paper, and we have to make the first draft. And I think there are initiatives, but there is not a methodology and a system. And even our producers, I agree with him, are not having their priority. I mean, they finish a film and it's so hard to do it that they're so tired, and they say, okay, it's not my problem, the distribution. So we have to start.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I think you were first.
First and foremost, thank you very much for being here. I just wanted to ask, how do you think, I come from Mexico as well, how do you think we can create a more kind of like hunger for the audiences back home for independent cinema? Because I do agree with the fact that, like back home, a lot of people want to go to the theater, but sometimes it's not for the locally sourced films that we're making. So as from your experience, what do you think we should be making as filmmakers? I'm an independent filmmaker, to kind of like create or change the appetite of the people or the audiences back home?
Yeah, I think that we have so many problems in our regions that I think it's good always to find in the bright side and how we can solve one problem by one problem. But I feel that in our countries where we have a lot of support from the government, scholarship grants, etc., that makes us lazy too. Because I would say that in these countries, you can live your whole life and career by getting funds and doing movies with no audience. And sometimes I think that for filmmakers, it's better to jump from one to another, and it was like, it went to 3 festivals, and you do the next one, because really connecting to an audience is a lot of work. And I feel that it's exciting, because if you go to Mexico City to the Cinematheque, it's full. You see, like if in a Sunday or Saturday, you feel that it's like a Super Bowl game, because there's, an audience that was created. That people know what they're gonna see, they're gonna eat, they're gonna talk, they're gonna discuss, they're gonna, And I feel that it's a matter of decision, because you can choose to just, get sponsored by the government and complain every time you don't get the fund. I still do get rejected a lot of times with my movies. But I feel that it's beautiful when you really connect with an audience. And I think we've forgotten how important it is. So for me, the problem is from the root. That we need to focus on that, and not only on the festival that will kind of trigger our career in a different way. I think both things are important from a different perspective.
Sorry, but we have time only for one last question. You, the lady in white.
No.
You start.
Good, good.
I don't know, just the few times I've tried to take Latin American content to the US via some platform, it didn't like meet the requests of the platform, you know? And I mean, you don't have the cast. Yeah, I mean, it's not US content, so it's you have to. I mean, it's spoken in Spanish, so I mean, I have failed every time I tried, so I cannot give you a formula for that. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts.
We have, we cannot talk for Netflix, but in the new incentive we have for international productions that come to Colombia to shoot or to produce, there have been 38 projects that Netflix has financed, and you gave our bigger example, which is 100 Years of Solitude, that everything was Colombian. I mean, the talent, the everything. And for us, it's been a learning experience. It's been a very good experience with them, but still, they have all the rights for the production. So we have no information about the data. We know it has been all right because they're doing the second season, but we don't really know the data about what happens there. We don't even have the data of the television in Colombia, so sometimes we are only looking to the box office in cinemas data, and that's what people are having in their minds. Nobody is seeing Colombian films, but you don't know. We have, for instance, 2 free platforms in Colombia, one with the public television, and the other one, it's Retina Latina, which is an initiative of 6 countries that did that 10 or 12 years ago. But that is not the solution. I mean, I agree with you. It doesn't has to be. It had to be a free thing. Our cinema has to be, you know, in the park, because everyone, it's going to be free for everyone. I think we need to find the way to recoup some money from that, to still, you know, and to valorize. I don't know if you say valorize. Valorize also that. I mean, free things are not necessarily valued.
Yeah, I would just add that we need more flavors. I think that in Latin America we do have more flavors, I would say. There's always room to improve a lot and grow, but I feel that in a way we get the flavor from the US, you know? We get imposed that flavor, and we've trained that that's the only flavor, and that we all need to like the same movie, the same show for the same 2 weeks. And I feel that where I'm optimist is that I think that the bets I've made as a producer for different kind of storytelling, different kind of stories, and is that people do want to get different flavors. And it's how we can, you know, protect our stories. Because to be honest, you know, you're in the industry, and I don't know, you have a great idea, and you can go the long road to produce a movie with public funding, co-production, or you just get an offer from a streamer to finance it all, and you know, a lot of producers take it. And then we have, you know, comfort, and so it's different shades, you know, different sides of the coin in our industry, behind, you know, the cameras and in front. But I feel that you know, it's very important. For example, Roma became, you know, a movie that helped in inclusion, in change of domestic workers' rights in Mexico, etc., but not by trying to do that. And I feel that sometimes in the US, it comes to inclusion from checklist. You know, in order to be eligible, you need to have this, not from real, you know, like sometimes because that's the way the system works. But I feel that it's very interesting to be part of the ecosystem from different ways to change that. For example, what do? I'm part of La Agenda in the Academy in the US. I became member of BAFTAs because there's not many Latin American members. I became part of the executive committee for the international feature film category in the AMPAs, because we need more members, more international members, but they just don't happen to show up. We need to be there and bring them and be part and actively be part, you know? Like for example, in our Mexican Academy, we recently voted for the Academy Awards in Mexico, and just a little amount of people, I cannot say numbers, but from the members' registers, with their with their dues paid up to date, voted. You know, so 50% that opened the webpage didn't finish their voting. So less than probably 10, 20% of the members voted actually to select our own movies. It's not a matter of the government, it's about us being part of. And sometimes it's more comfortable just to, you know, be there and just, you know, complain if it affects you and everything. But I do feel, and I'm here because for me it's important that we keep, you know, making keeping the door open for the next and more people and more stories, etc.
And North America, that's why we rely in TIFF and maybe in the market of TIFF next year to bring a lot of people from North America to see our films. And goodbye.
Good finish.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We must
Thank
leave
you.